Hello everyone, welcome to the Fly Racing Post-Race Show, coming to you from the Can-Am GNCC Round 7 at the Mountaineer Run here in Masontown, West Virginia. New event for the GNCC series, another new location that makes 3 in a row, places we haven't been before, so pretty exciting stuff, Heard a lot of stories before we came into this race, about the track, what was it going to be, how rocky was it going to be. It was really gnarly. They used to hold local races here, and I think the trails from those local races had been pretty beat up, and people were a little bit concerned. But, Jeff Russell and the crew with Barry Hawk, they found some pretty sweet trails out there. Ran a little bit of the old stuff, but it had healed itself pretty well. And, yesterday the quads got all the slop and junk off the top of the trail, so and the rocks did start to come through, and some slick mud was coming out in some sections. We had a couple mud holes and some hill climbs and stuff, but all in all, it was going to be a really good track. Nothing too gnarly, where it was like a Somerset sort of rock situation. So it was the stage was set for a pretty good race. We knew it was going to be hot. Temperatures were up close to 90 today with the humidity, so fitness was going to play a factor. So it was going to be an interesting day. See how things panned out. And right off the get-go in the XC1 class, no surprise, Paul Whibley, another hole shot. That is 7 straight hole shots this year, which is just mind-boggling. But he had some company right behind him. He had Rory Mead right behind him early, and Rory jumped out to the lead and started to check out. We were just a few miles into the race, and Rory had jumped out to like a 15-second lead, which was kind of reminiscent of what Rory did in Mammoth, Kentucky. He was riding that 300 two-stroke again, and he was going through some of the gnarly rocky sections, and it didn't sound like he was going fast. He was lugging that 300 along, but he was just gapping the entire field. I think he ended up having a crash at some point that damaged the throttle housing on his bike. He had to pit, and they were working on his bike. And when that happened, the trio of Caleb Russell, Charlie Mullins, and Paul Whibley closed it in on him. And the next thing you know, Charlie was leading, Caleb was second, Wibbs was third, and Rory had dropped all the way back to fourth. And looked like we were going to end up having a pretty good battle between Mullins and Russell as they started to eke out just a little bit on Wibbs. Rory was kind of falling back a little bit too. And then same old story we had as the last race. Mullins, bike problems. Mullins is out. We're having an awesome battle going on, and then next thing you know, Charlie's sitting on the side of the trail. So we're not exactly sure what happened there. We just heard that the bike cut out, died, wouldn't start. So I'm not sure if it's something electrical or what. Such a bummer for Charlie. The streak of bad luck continues. We saw the same thing kind of happen last year with Josh Strang, but that was maybe in the second half of the season where it just seemed like he wasn't going to be able to contend for a championship for the second year. And at this point, Charlie's pretty much out of it. It would take some pretty big things to happen from Paul and Caleb for him to get back into it. So that's a definite bummer. So the next race, that kind of what happened then, Caleb and Whibley, took over the lead, and those two guys went at it for a long portion of the race. And not to keep talking about old races, but this was kind of reminded me of the John Penton last year. The temperatures were hot. Whibley and Caleb are way out front. Who's gonna last? Who's gonna be able to make it to the end? And you never really want to be in a last lap battle with Paul Whibley, because the guy, the Badger, he's not going to give up. He's not going to relent. And going into the last lap, there was about 16 seconds Paul had eked out over Caleb. And 2 miles after that, from the finish, Caleb had cut that deficit down almost in half. And then he worked his way in, and we saw some pretty awesome racing on that last lap, where some uphills and stuff where they were battling back and forth, and Caleb was trying to make passes. And about a mile from the finish, Caleb tried to make a move in it was a high speed section where it was kind of rocky, and almost lost it. Said he decided to back it down then, because by the time he saved it, Paul had gapped him to a point where, with a little bit of remaining track, he wasn't going to be able to make it happen. So Caleb backed it in, cruised in for the finish. We had Paul Whibley in first and Caleb in second, and they were way out in front of the rest of the field. Rory Mead ended up coming across the line in third for XC1, but he was actually fifth physically on the track, and we'll get to that in a second about the XC2 class, because that was another great race. And we had Thad Duvall had another solid ride in his home state for a fourth, and then we had Takeshi Koikita, the Japanese rider, the JNCC champ, finished fifth. That was his best XC1 finish ever. So pretty awesome ride for him. Didn't see much of Nate Canny, Chris Bach, those guys. Jordan Ashburn rode the WR 450 for the first time and just didn't look nearly as comfortable as he did at the last race. So I think little bit of a bummer for him. He wasn't able to back up, his career best finish, this past weekend. So Garrett Edmondson had a good ride too. It was him and Takeshi were going back and forth. So some good rides there in the XC1 class, but then we got to talk about this XC2 class because, as I said, near the end of the race, the top riders in that class actually got up into the top 3 overall. So in that class, we saw Brad Bakken grab the whole shot, breaking Cody Gragg's streak of, I think Cody had 5 in a row there. And Brad actually led for a good bit of the first 2 laps. He had Jason Thomas, Andrew DeLong, Jed Haynes, all giving chase. Obviously, the big name missing in that class right now, Stuart Baylor. He's finally come out and said that he did have wrist surgery after the last race. We're not too sure on the details there. We had heard rumors that he was going to actually line up and just try and make a lap today to see if he could score some points, but he ended up not doing that. So we saw him out in the woods giving pit boards for the KTM guys, which was pretty cool for him to still support his friends and fellow teammates and stuff out there. But as the race shook out, the cream of the crop rose to the top. I rhymed. I'm sorry. We knew that DeLong and Thomas are without Baylor there, they should be the two top guys, and they worked their way out to a pretty big lead, and they were really pushing each other. And DeLong said he would get out front and they would make a mistake. Thomas would get by him, and Thomas would make a mistake, and they were just kind of going back and forth there because like a track like this, you can only push so hard. In some of those sections, one of those slippery rocks is going to get you, and but coming down to the finish, the last couple laps, they started getting really up into the XC1 riders, as I was saying. Next thing you know, they had actually passed Rory Mead, and Andrew was physically 3rd on the track, and Jason was physically 4th, so we knew they were in the top 3 overall as well. So coming into the finish, DeLong was able to hold him off, pulled out just a little bit of a lead. I'm not exactly sure on how many seconds it was, but it was a comfortable one where he didn't need to look over his shoulder the last few turns. Thomas had a solid ride for 2nd place, and then Jesse Robinson, who was pretty much not in the race at all. Looked like he was going to have a repeat of his, like he said, he had an off day 2 weeks ago. Jesse sneaks in, grabs a 3rd place spot on the podium. So that was a good ride for Jesse. I know he's been having some struggles, so maybe that'll help get his mojo back going there. That's pretty much it for the pro classes. Got to give a big shout out to Grant Baylor and Lane Michael. They were 12th and 13th overall from the 250A class. I know Lane was really going for the win. This track's maybe about 40 minutes from his house, home state kid. And Grant ended up getting him by about 20-some seconds for the win at the end of the race. But 12th and 13th overall for those 2 kids. Grant's only 14. Lane's just turned 18 last week. So pretty cool to see. They beat a lot of XC2 guys and even some XC1 riders. So impressive finish for those 2. I think that's pretty much it. I've covered just about everything. It was an exciting weekend. There was a massive crowd here this weekend for Memorial Day, especially. The facility is massive, as you can probably see behind me. There's plenty of places to go. So I have a feeling we're going to be coming back here. If you missed out this year, definitely come check it out next year because there's so much property that I don't feel like this will be the kind of facility where they're going to run the same track over and over because there's so many options out there, which is definitely cool. So that's pretty much it. We're going to come back at you from the Snowshoe GNCC. We've got a little bit of a break here. That'll be June 23rd, 24th, I think. So we'll be in a little bit of a hiatus while the season kind of gets shuffled around. I know the Racer Productions crew and we'll be at High Point for the Pro Motocross. So I think that kind of bumped us back. But anyway, thanks for watching. Keep tuning in to Digital Off-Road for all sorts of great updates, videos, photo galleries, all that stuff. And of course, GNCCRacing.com for the Tuesday Toolbox quick fill, all that good stuff that they've got going on over there, and of course the live timing and everything. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in a few weeks.